Welcome back. In this video, we're going to create section 8 of the layout, which is the get started, also known as CTA or call to action section. So here you're going to start with the heading, and then you're going to create the two equal columns, with the left column having the CTA info, and then the right or the second column having the form. So let's get started and create something similar like what you have on the layout. So on the HTML, I'm going to start that section. So I'm going to start with a comment as always. So we have start section 8, get started. So we have that section with an ID of contacts and a class of get started. We need a container and a row. Tab. So here you're going to start with the heading. So we have h1 with a class of display3 and a class of font weight bold and a class of text capitalize. So we have that text, get started. Then on the row here, we need to add the text center class. So text center. So after the heading, we need the heading line. So we have that class, heading line. And then the subheading. So we have P with a class of line height, large. And then some dummy text. We have lorem 12. And then I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser so far. So now we have that text. Next, I'm going to style this section. And here we're going to set some padding and some background color. So you can see here from the layout, we're going to use this gray color. So let's work on that. So we have a SASS file for that section, which is getstarted.scss. So I'm going to open that file. And here the first thing I'm going to do is to use the modules. So we have the custom module and the mixin module. So we have the use and then custom. So again, use it as star. Also, we need the mixin. So we have again use components mixin, use as star. So I'm going to style the class we have on the section, which is the get started. So we have this class. So here I'm going to set some padding, top and bottom. I'm going to set that to 4M. And then left and right 0. Then the background color, we're going to use one of the gray colors. So here I'm going to use gray 200. Then I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser. So there you have it. Next, I'm going to create the two columns. From the layout here, we have the two columns. We have the left column with this gradient background, which will have the CTA info. And then we have the right column with this white background, which will have the form. So let's work on that. So on the HTML, I'm going to create a new row for that content. First, let's start with a comment, which is start the CTA info or the CTA content. So I'm going to start a new row, which will have the two columns. So we have a row with a class of text white. And then we have the two columns. So I'm going to group them. I'm going to start with call 12 and another column, which I'm going to use call LG6. Then here at the end, I'm going to say ×2. Hit tab. So on the first column, we're going to have that gradient background. And then on the second column, we're going to have that white background. So on the first column, I'm going to add a class called gradient, which you're going to create in a moment. So gradient, and then also shadow and some padding. So I'm going to use padding 3. And then on the second column, we are going to have white background. So we have BG white, and then some shadow, and also padding 3. Then I'm going to create that gradient, and we already have that mixin. So I'm going to go to that file, mixin.scss. So you're going to copy this gradient and then create it as a class. So I'm going to copy, and then on typography, you're going to create it on that file. So here we have a comment, which is gradient BG, and then we have that class gradient, and then paste. So I'm going to save. Let's see how it looks like on the browser. So now you can see the two columns. We have the left, which has this gradient, and then the right, which has this white background. Next, now we are going to add the content. So inside the HTML, on the first column, we are going to create a class called CTA info. So this one will be the container for all the content that you're going to put on the first column. So we have CTA info, and then we're going to set the width to 100%. So we have W100. So here we're going to start with the content for left column. So we have this 100% satisfaction guarantee. So I'm going to copy that text, and here I'm going to start H4 with a class of display4 and a class of font weight bold, and then paste that text. The next text we are going to add is the paragraph. So we have this dummy text. So we have paragraph with a class of line height large, and then some dummy text. So we have lorem 21, and then after the paragraph we have this subheading, and then the list. So here I'm going to have H3 with a class of display3, and I'm going to modify that with brief. So we're going to style it later, and then the text, and then from there we need the list. So we have UL, that is an ordered list with a class of CTA info __ list. And then we have the list items. So we have the li, and then some dummy text, lorem ipsum, and then here I'm going to say times 3, hit tab, and now we have the text. So I'm going to save. Let's see how it looks on the browser. So now we have the content. So here we need to make sure that they reflect what we have here on the layout. So I'm going to copy the content. So we have the first list item, paste. So I've copied all the text or the list items. So I'm going to save and check on the browser. So now we have that text. The next step now is to style this content. So on the SASS file, that is the get_started.scss, we are going to create that container, that is the CTA info. CTA info. So remember, this is the container for all the content on the left column. So we have that CTA info. So here I'm going to set the padding to 3 rem, all sides. And then I'm also going to set the margin 1 rem, top and bottom, and then 0 left and right. From there, I'm going to style the list. So we have __ list. So here I'm going to start by setting the position to relative. Then I'm going to set the list style type to none. And then display, we're going to set that to block. So I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser. So that is how the content looks like now. Next, I'm going to style the list items. From the layout here, you can see the list item are using this check icon. And here we're going to use the Unicode for this check icon. So on the SASS file, you're going to nest it the way you have done on the HTML. So we have the list item inside the class list. So we have the li and then content before, because the check icon must come before the list items. So here you're going to start with the font family, and you're going to use the font Awesome 5 free. So we have the double quotes and then font Awesome 5 free. Then the content, and just like I said, you're going to get the Unicode from Font Awesome documentation. So we have that cheat sheet, that is the Font Awesome cheat sheet. So here you're going to search for that icon. So I'm just going to type check, and then it's going to list for us all the versions of the check icon. And you can see here we have that icon and then the Unicode. So the Unicode of that icon is F00C. So I'm going to copy that. Then on the content, we're going to add the double quotes and then the backslash and then the Unicode, like that. Then we need to set the font weight, and here you must set any value from 600 and above. So I'm going to use 600. Then I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser how it looks like. And there you have it. Now you can see we have the check icon on the list items. The next step now is to add some padding and some space between the icon and the list items. So here I'm going to set margin right. So I'm going to use 0.5 rem. And then also set the font size. So I'm going to use 1.2 rem. And then on the list, that is the list class, I'm going to set padding top. I'm going to use 0.5 rem. And then padding left, I'm going to use 0.5 also. And then some margin at the bottom, I'm going to use 0.7 rem. So I'm going to save. Let's see. And there you have it. Now you can see we have some enough space between the content. Next, I'm going to add the content for the second column. So from the layout here, we have this heading that says start your project and then the form. So let's work on that. So here, just like we did with the first column, I'm going to create a container for that content. So I'm going to call this container form. And then we're going to set the width to 100%. So we have W 100 and then some padding at the bottom. So we have padding bottom 2. So we're going to start with that heading. And here we are going to use the same heading that we used on the services. So just to show you where we have that heading on the services, you can see we have this heading with the background clip. So these are two colors. So we're going to use the same heading on that part. So I'm going to have h4 with a class of display3, and you're going to modify that with title. And then some margin at the bottom. So we have margin bottom 5. So we have that text, which is start your project. So I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser. So now you can see we have that heading. Next, let's add the form. So before I add the form, I must mention that in the new version, that is Bootstrap version 5, they dropped the use of the form group class. So here we're going to use one of the utility classes to wrap up our form or the input fields. So we have the form and then the action. We're going to have that for now. And then we have the class row. So we have, so here we're going to use margin bottom 3. So you must have that class, so mb3. And then the input, this one is for the first name. And we have the type of the input, which is text. And then we need the placeholder. So the placeholder is first name. And then you also need the ID, input, first name. And then we need the class form control. So I'm going to hit tab. So here I'm going to duplicate for the last name. And then I'm going to change the placeholder to last name. And also the inputs. And then I'm going also to duplicate again for the email. So this one, the input type is an email. Placeholder email. Address. So we have the ID, input email. And then I'm going to duplicate for the message. So the type is, actually this is not an input, it's a text area. So I'm going to remove that and then add text area. So the name, message, ID, message, and then you're going to add the class. So I'm going to copy this form control and then add it on the text area. And here we just only need rows 8. So I'm going to set from 10 to 8. So I'm going to save. Let's see from the browser how it looks like. So this is our form. So we need to add some shadow and then make sure that our input field are large, like what we have here on the layout. So I'm going to select the class for the 4 of them. And then I'm going to add shadow. And then we need also to add another class. So I'm going to select and add form control large. So this one is form control. So I'm going to save. Let's see. So now you can see our form. So we need to add the placeholder where we have the message. So I'm going to copy. Save, let's see. And there you have it. The next one, let's add the button. Text center. So we have that class. And then you're also going to set the display to grid. So we have D grid. And then some margin at the top. So we have margin top 1. And then now we need that button. So we have button. And the type of the button is button. And then the class, we have btn, primary, and then rounded pill. And then we have padding top 3 and also padding bottom 3. So we have PB 3. So that we can have some space between the content. So I'm going to hit tab. And then here we're going to add submit. So let's see, save, and there you have it. Now you can see we have that button. Next we are going to add you can see we have an icon. So we're going to add that icon. So that one should come after the text. So we have the icon, and then the class font awesome solid, and then the name of that icon is paper plane. Save, let's see, and there you have it. Next I'm going to style this content. So on the get started, so here I'm going to start with a comment. So we have the form content. So we have that class form, and here I'm going to set the padding. So I'm going to set padding to 3 rem. So remember here on the CTA info we set that to 3 rem also. So I'm going to set that to 3 rem. And then you're going to style the button. So you have the button inside the form. So here I'm going to set the border to none. And then we have the color. I'm going to use white. And then we're going to style any link. We're going to start with the color, which I'm going to set that to white. And then text decoration, we're going to set that to none also. And then text transform, I'm going to set that to capitalize. So I'm going to save, let's see. And there you have it. You can see now we have our content. Next, let's make sure that our form looks similar like what we have on the layout. And that is to have the first name and the last name in one row. So here I'm going to create 2 equal columns, which is going to split the 2 and also make our form fully responsive. So let's work on that. So remember here we have a class called row. That means any column that you put inside the row will be displayed using flex. So for the first name and the last name, I'm going to select the 2 classes. And then here I'm going to add a column which is going to split the 2 on large devices only. And then on any other device, then they are going to go to full width. So I'm going to use call LG6. And then for the email address and the message, I'm going to use call LG12. That means they'll go full width regardless of the screen width. So we have call LG12. Save. So let's see. So here you can see already we have the first name and the last name being split into 2. And this one will only happen on large devices only. So I'm going to right click and inspect element. So you can see this one is a device with a screen window of 360, and you can see already the first name and the last name are going full width. So it's only on large devices where we're going to have the first name and the last name split into 2. So I'm going to change to another device, and this one will be a medium device like an iPad. And this is a screen window of 768, and you can see the input field are going full width. We can even do the same way we have done on large devices where we have the first name and the last name split into 2. So here we're going to add a column which is going to create that media breakpoint for medium devices. So here I'm going to add call MD6. And then I'm going to save, let's see. And there you have it. You can see now on medium devices, we have 2 columns or 2 equal columns for the first name and the last name, and they are in the same row. So with that, I think our form is fully responsive across variety of screen devices.